Please be seated. There was a young boy in the 30s, and he made money by going door to door to make enough money to go to school and to eat. And one day he was down to his last dime and he was really hungry. And so he considered that the next door, when he knocked on their door, that he would ask for a meal. When the door opened, a young woman opened the door, and he lost his nerve, so he said, "Can I have a glass of water?" And so she, as young as she was, noticed that he looked hungry. So she gave him a glass of milk. He drank the milk slowly and then asked, "How much do I owe you?" And she said, "My mother's taught us never to charge for acts of kindness." Many years later, this young woman grows up and develops a very serious disease, and they couldn't figure it out. And so they go to a hospital, and this doctor comes in, and he goes into, he heard where she came from, and he thought, I know that place, and walks into the room and sees the patient and recognizes her at once as a young girl who had given him a glass of milk. Months of training, of all these tests and this and that, and finally they figured out what was wrong, and she got better. And so as she's getting ready to go, as all of us know, we always get our bill, right, before they check us out. And she was really worried because she thought, I've been here for a long time, there's been lots of tests, this is going to be a lot of money. But the doctor had said, can you give me that bill before you give that bill to her? And he wrote something on the sheet of paper and when they handed it to her, she opens up the envelope, and it said, "You paid it with a glass of milk." It was the young boy became a doctor. His name is Dr. Howard Kelly, and he was one of the founding doctors of Johns Hopkins Hospital. This weekend, we celebrated Father Al Rodriguez for the ministry he's done with Latino ministry. But it started, even though it started before here, he was here where he really toiled with that and where the seeds were planted, because you all, with him, were willing to open your doors to people who don't speak the same language you do, who look a little different and have a different culture, but you thought church is for everybody, so we should open the doors to all of our neighbors. And that work that was begun here has grown nationally, and so he was not only recognized in the Diocese of Texas, he was recognized by the national church for his work. There's a woman named Jacqueline Novogratz who got a sweater when she was 11 years old, and it had giraffes and things like that. It was a blue sweater, and she loved this sweater. And she goes to school one day, and some young boy made a snarky remark about how her breasts were really shown very, what would be the right word? Prominently, thank you, prominently with this sweater. She gives that sweater away. She said, I never want to wear this sweater. It was her favorite sweater, but she gives it away. She goes on, and she is working at Chase Bank with international business, and she's running, this is like many years later, she's running in Africa, and she sees that sweater on a young boy. And she had written her name in the tag, so she asked, "Can I see that?" Because she's like, what are the odds, right? It was a very unique sweater, and it's that sweater. She sees that sweater in Africa many years later. Her story is long because she ends up being a founder of a nonprofit that now has done things around water and irrigation and manufacturing, because what she learned then was how something that you can do, something small you can do, can turn into these amazing things. So she continued that work. In the mid-'80s, congregations in Austin got together with churches from the east side, synagogues from the west side, and churches from the south side, and university churches got together to form Austin Interfaith because they wanted to teach people how they could advocate for the things that they cared about, how to make their communities better. And this organization, founded in 1985, has been teaching people ever since. I've been fortunate, and we are part of this organization ourselves. I went to HEB not that long ago, and this woman said to me, this parent that I had known and worked with in Travis Heights, she says, my children are now in Ann Richards, and we're using the same tools we learned in our elementary school of how to build bridges in our school, how to engage and involve people who normally have not been engaged in school advocacy. What we learned so many years ago is still bearing fruit. I got a call last week from a woman who's organizing her apartment complex because the manager they're having trouble. But she said, you all taught us, Austin Interfaith taught us that we don't have to be passive, that we don't have to take injustice, that we can make changes in our community. And this same people who've been working on different things also created an organization where it's long-term job trainings that they've graduated, nurses and dental hygienists, accountants, teachers, other people around healthcare, technology, manufacturing, and trade. Over 2,000 people by this group of people starting now 50 years ago in the mid-'80s. What all of these stories have in common is that something started by either individuals or organizations, groups of people, that those acts that happened did not always bear fruit right away, right? We didn't see that. We didn't know. People didn't know where it was going to go. And so today we hear Jesus telling his disciples, the kingdom of heaven is like. What can I compare the kingdom of heaven to? And it's these seeds that get planted, but we don't know what's going on. It's hidden, right? It says that you throw the seed out there, and the gardener goes to sleep and wakes up and goes to sleep and wakes up, and then, there it is. And it may have seemed like nothing was happening. I am not a gardener. I am really, really bad. And part of it is my impatience. I'm like, how are you going to grow? You're not doing anything. When am I going to see that potato? Right? It's happening. It's happening underground. Jesus also says about how this little mustard seed, teeny tiny little mustard seed, grows. And it grows, and what does it do? It creates a shrub that holds space for birds to be nourished, to be sheltered, to find shade, to find seeds to eat. So these seeds that may have seemed so insignificant create an ecosystem for birds and creation to thrive. Not just survive, but to thrive. This is good news, brothers and sisters, because we are living in a world where we feel like God has just abandoned us. God doesn't know what's going on. Why and where is God in all of this? And the disciples of Jesus were asking the same question. Where is God in all of this? Life is hard. You're talking about the kingdom. Where is the kingdom? And Jesus says, see, this is the thing. God is present in your lives. We just may not know it. We don't know how God works. And we have to be willing to be okay with that. Not to feel like we got to be in control and moving things along and making sure things go the way that we think it needs to go. It's God's work. We're called and invited to plant these seeds, to live in a particular way, and then let God do God's thing. And the thing is that this isn't new to us. It wasn't even new to Jesus. Because where did Jesus learn it? Ezekiel taught Jesus the same message. Ezekiel was writing as an exiled prophet. He wasn't even in his own land. He'd been kicked out. And he was writing to people who had been kicked out too. And who were like, where is God? God promised us this land of milk and honey, and we don't even have the land, let alone the milk and the honey. But Jesus says, Ezekiel said to them, look, God's going to plant you back. And you're going to go from this little pruning branch, you're going to grow, and you're going to be a blessing to others. And Jesus reminds his disciples, look, we may not know how it works. We may not see it in action. But God is going to keep God's promise as God has always done. And I know it's hard for us because we are people, and I'll use the I language. I want to know how it's going to end up. I want to, make it faster, go in a particular direction. And some of you I have talked about this with others because there is a concern. Our church is going to be around. Is St. John's going to be around? There's this wave of secularism. There's this wave of anti-religion, organized religion. Are we going to be around? There's a concern lingering. So not just about the world out there and what's happening or not happening, but even within us. And so the good news is that we don't have to worry about that. We are called and invited to plant the seeds, to act kindly, to be merciful, to live a faithful life, and all that gets planted and sown, God will do God's thing, and God will keep God's promise. We don't know when, we don't know how, but God will keep God's promise. And we see these evidences. We are here surrounded by fans. Why are the fans on, and why does it feel warmer than it normally is? Well, there's this big machine in the back that's having a little trouble. And we're not sure if this little machine's going to make it. We're going to try to see if it gets fixed, but it may need to get replaced. And that's not $5, friends. We're talking maybe over $100,000. Yes, that face is what I made, exactly. But here's the thing. What did I announce not that long ago? Do you remember my announcement? What did I announce? A gift. A gift. That's more than that cost. God provides. Let me tell you, if that bill had come 2 years ago, I don't know what we would have done. But we would have been okay because God always provides. God is at work. That seed that Miss Ehrman planted, look, she didn't know what she was doing. She didn't know how it was going to help this community. She trusted. She just did. And we're all called. I'm called, you're called. We are called to pay attention. Plant the seeds. Smile. Good morning. The cup of soup, the baked goods, the flowers that get delivered, the letters that get written to Congress, the voting that happens during elections, the tutoring that some of you may do, the knitting that goes, who knows where that cap or that scarf is going to end, who's going to receive it, and what blessings it's going to produce. We don't know. We don't have to know. And that's the hard part, letting go. That we don't have to know. That we don't have to control. We're asked and called to trust. and release it to God to do God's work. And I am confident that this church and congregations throughout the world will continue to do the things we're called to do. Because I don't have to worry about that. I know that God will do what God needs to do, and all we have to do is, as individuals, collectively, respond to that and pay attention and find out where is their harvesting time, when is it planting time, and then let God do the things under the ground. He'll take care of that. And together, with that trust and with that confidence, we will grow those shrubs and those trees where people can rest, where people can get nourished, where people can be filled and find God's love and peace always. Amen.